Hey there, I hope you're ready for another great conversation. Today, I get to sit down and chat with someone from my home state, just a couple hours away, Gretchen Fonticaro. She is a certified life coach and mental health advocate. And one of my favorites, she is also a fellow INFJ. If you know, you know. We have a wonderful conversation where she talks about her experience with toxic workplaces and dealing with the CEO who was actually the one fostering and creating the toxic work environment. I think that you're really going to like her perspective as well as some of her reflections and advice on how you can cope and manage and leave a toxic work environment. All right, go ahead and get ready to tune in to this next episode. I hope you enjoy it. Hi, Gretchen. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this and being a part of this series. I'm so happy that you're here today.
Thank you for inviting me, Chelsea.
Absolutely. And before we get started and really dive in, I'd love for you to share why you said yes and why you decided to come on and share your experience and thoughts regarding this topic.
Um, that's a great question. I'm a mental health advocate, and unfortunately, toxic workplaces are a huge problem, and they continue to
Yes.
be a problem. And until people start standing up and saying, time out, no more, until people like you take up the advocacy of this and, and wave the red flag and go, come on, people, there's a huge problem here. Nobody should have to work in a toxic environment. It's just not how it goes. And so I've been in a couple of toxic environments and thought maybe I could add my 2 cents.
I love that. And your perspective as a mental health advocate is going to be so important in our conversation today. And you mentioned that you've worked in some toxic environments yourself. So, do you mind sharing when exactly you discovered the environment was toxic? Was it one moment or was it a buildup of things?
The first, well, uh, in some instances, I feel like all my employers have been toxic to one degree or another. Whether
Mm,
it's one individual in the workplace who is just making everybody else's life miserable, and the um, management not willing to do anything about it, versus the one instance I'm going to start with. I got to know a couple of the people who worked at it. It was a new startup, um,
okay.
and it was. Uh, I got to know a couple of the people who were going to be in the executive director and the marketing
Mm,
manager outside
okay.
of the environment, and loved them. Two dynamic women, very intelligent,
Mhm.
articulate go-getters, and I had the opportunity to come work for them, and I thought, wow, this would be really cool. I enjoy that.
Yeah.
Well, then I met the CEO, and
Mhm.
she is a whole other. Uh, um,
Oh,
Working with these two women, working with some of the other staff was great,
mhm.
but her management style um,
Mm,
was coming from a place of she was angry, she was bitter, and she was bound and determined to make sure everybody else was that way also.
mhm.
And she had a lot of baggage from her childhood, and that was
Mm,
carrying over. And her pride and her ego,
mhm.
were huge. And so it was the kind of thing where I'm not sure how she gets through the door, or her ego comes through
Mhm.
the door 10 minutes before she does, kind of a thing,
Yes.
because
Yep.
and this was her baby, and she
Mm,
was going to be successful one way or another.
mhm.
And she had some great ideas, and she I could see her philosophy, and I understood her philosophy, and the vision and the mission were spot on. um,
Mm.
And so it was a matter of, she was stepping on everybody's toes. She was running the organization. The executive
Mm-hmm.
director, bless her heart, because she was good, but she wasn't allowed to do anything because the CEO was constantly doing things that she should have been doing.
Wow.
And
And
go
it
ahead.
sounds like the word is controlling as well.
Yes.
I always like to put words to it so people know what to pay attention to. So it sounds like she had some control issues.
Yes, she very much had control issues because it was her baby. And she couldn't let it go. She couldn't, it's you're hiring dynamite people and you're paying dynamite people. Let them, you got to get out of their way and let them do their job.
Right.
And she had a hard time doing that. And the the assistant director, who eventually, after a few years, became the chief operating officer, didn't do anything. I mean,
Wow.
it was a contrast of, he either was playing with the AV equipment like TVs, and setting up TVs and setting up the movie theater that was in this place. And he was always because that was his love, that's what he wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a challenge to be able to, when things were when you needed answers to questions, finding him sometimes was difficult because he would just go and hide. He didn't want to work. He didn't want to do anything. He wanted to get paid the big bucks, but he
Right.
just wanted to sit back and have things done for him. And so that was you're doing this dance,
Right.
and trying to balance the two. And it just, I was there 5 years, and when they told me that they were going to drop my hours from 40 hours a
Mhm.
week to 20, I said, oh good, there's the universe telling me it's time, because
Yes.
I'd been wanting to leave for a while but couldn't find anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So I just kind of, it's the need the income. So I'm just going to continue to stay here and put up with it. And I
Right.
enjoyed a lot of the people that I worked with. I have some friends
Mm-hmm.
that I worked that are still friends today. So, from that aspect,
Yes.
that's what kept my sanity. So, and then she was shocked when I said, okay, good. Then, the day that happens, that's my last day.
Yes.
I mean, the look on her face was like, what?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Why would I stay? Why would I continue to do this?
You know what? You said so much, and I just want to call out a few things. Number one, the CEO. I always like to remind people that the way that someone treats you or the way that they behave, because you pointed it out, she had some ego issues and some
Mm-hmm.
childhood trauma. There were things there. The way that supervisors and CEOs treat you has nothing to do with you. It's
Exactly.
always something within them. And I think a lot of the professionals that I meet are always quick to blame themselves. Like, oh, maybe I'm doing something wrong, or I'm not doing my job right, or maybe I'm being too sensitive. So I like that you brought that up, that there were already some internal issues going on there. Also, it sounds like, I think you said the COO, it sounds like he just avoided everything
Mm-hmm.
so that he would never have to address it,
Right.
which is a bigger problem. And I'm curious, the women who you were excited to work with, did they ever address the issue? Did they stay, or how did that turn out?
The executive director left after 2 years.
Okay,
She, what was the point? She was
right.
never going to be. I mean, I'm surprised she lasted as long as she did. Honestly,
Mhm.
she did try and make changes. She did try and advocate for things that were going on. And she, she did a great job.
Mm-hmm.
She took another job, better opportunity. So, good for her.
Absolutely.
And the marketing director stayed for quite a while, but yes, she did eventually leave.
Okay. Okay. And I'm just curious to know, was it an open conversation in your organization? Did everyone know who the problem was? Did they
Mhm.
willingly talk about it?
Oh yeah, it was
Okay.
it was discussed quite a bit behind her back.
Okay. So it sounds like you all leaned on each other for
Yes,
support and some
yeah,
camaraderie, which
yeah.
I'm
There
grateful you
was
were able to do that.
numerous venting. I had a management role, so
Hmm.
I made sure that I was there for one, for my team, and
Hmm.
two, for everybody else. I'll be an ear for everyone. If you want to vent, hey, let's vent, let's talk about it, let's strategize, let's figure out how we can exist.
Yes.
Because ultimately it was the customers
Hmm.
that we were there to serve, and
Right.
we tried to keep that away from them, but they're not stupid.
Right. People
They
can
could,
see what's
yeah,
going on.
right. Um, and so that was a challenge. That was a challenge.
Yes, and I want to pick up on two things. So, number one, as a mental health advocate, I know that you already have some tools in your tool belt to use in order to navigate this toxic work environment. But did you struggle internally? What was your quality of life like when you were there and dealing with the CEO?
My quality of life was pretty poor. Because I'd go home stressed out and
Right.
frustrated and and angry.
Hmm.
Uh, you know,
Yeah.
at one point, I was asked to change roles, which was fine. I mean, I'm a team
Hmm.
player. If that's what you want, that's fine. She called me
Hmm.
grumpy.
Wow.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
of course I am, because you need to change your style. You need to do things different. And she wasn't willing to do that. It was her way. She knew exactly what she was doing.
Hmm.
And she was going to do it her way, come hell or high water. And
Right.
so, uh, and that at that point, I was like, yeah, it's time to move on. And so I looked, and I mean, I wasn't looking full time at
Hmm.
that. It
Yeah.
I did what people are now calling quiet quitting then. Before it was a thing.
Okay.
I
Yes.
just kind of, I'm going to do the bare minimum. I'm just going to kind of check out so that I can keep my sanity, and I can focus on the customers, and deliver what I need to deliver, and focus on my team, and make sure they're
Mhm.
supported, and they're doing what they need to do.
Absolutely. And I just want to call out the name calling because that's one thing that just really grinds my gears because you may have been grumpy, but the thing is, she's not taking accountability for her actions. And that's
Mhm.
putting the blame and shifting it on you to make you the problem.
Right. Plus, in my role, I was getting all the angry customers.
Hmm.
When there was dissatisfaction, I was the first line of fire for them. So, yeah, when that's all you get, and when that's all you
Hmm.
hear, it gets to you, and
Absolutely.
by the time they asked me to change roles, after 4 years of this, I was burnt out.
Hmm. On top of working in a stressful work environment as
Right.
well.
Right.
So it was all too much, it sounds like.
And the interesting thing about this role was I hired my replacement.
Did you?
And I didn't know it at the time, uh,
Mhm,
but within probably 6 months of her coming to work under me,
mhm.
she started a campaign to get me fired.
Wow.
So I mean, there was chaos on top of chaos, and that was and trying to get the COO to
Mhm.
understand, look, she's very good at manipulating, and
Right.
she used her feminine charms
Mm.
to be his friend,
Ah, okay.
and then she could go in and
Mhm.
sit in his office and go, you know, Gretchen's doing this, when I
Mhm.
wasn't, but we know how that goes, so it was
Right. And I mean that right there, there's toxic bosses, CEOs, but there's also toxic colleagues who try to sabotage you and do things
yes,
behind your back as
yes.
well. So I'm
Mhm.
glad you brought up that example too.
Yeah. So I mean, all around, it was just a toxic bubble.
What did you do? I know that you said, the quiet quitting to protect
Mhm.
yourself. And that's the one thing about toxic work environments. Like they're losing money whenever they foster that culture because your
Yep.
people are automatically going to tune out and do the bare minimum just to get by in order to protect themselves.
Yes.
But I'm curious if there's anything else that you did outside of work to kind of do self care or bring yourself some type of peace.
No, and that was a mistake on my part.
Mm,
And knowing now what I what I know now,
mhm.
would have been handier then, to be able to
Yes.
navigate that, and I would have been able to be less affected and
Yes.
not take things as personally as I did then. And that would have been much more helpful. And
Yes.
and I should have focused on what made me feel good rather than
Agreed.
putting my heart and soul into something. And it's because I'm going to do 110%. That's
Mhm.
just my nature. And
Right.
it was even though I did the whole quiet quitting thing, it was I was still, I'm still
Mhm.
doing what I need to do, and um, supporting people behind the scenes and making sure that other people are are supported, even though that wasn't my role. So
Right. And you bring up such an important point as well, because often I find that we attach ourselves to roles and companies
mhm,
and put ourselves last when it comes to our own mental health and emotional well being. So at the
yep,
end of the day, if you don't have that, you don't have anything
right,
because companies, they close every single day. They can lay you off, they can reduce your hours, like you mentioned before.
mhm,
So I like that you brought that up. And as a mental health advocate, what do you tell your clients or anybody that works in a toxic work environment right now? What's one piece of advice you would give to them?
um, you have to focus on you. They
Mhm.
will step over your cold dead body
Yes.
and not care, and they'll step over you and go, okay, who's up next, let's fill the
Mm.
role, um,
Right.
before they will even give you a second. Oh, you're leaving, okay, go, thanks. And you're
Mhm.
forgotten. As soon as you walk out that door, you are forgotten. So you have to look out for you. You have to put yourself first. And women have a tendency to put themselves last,
Absolutely.
and then their emotional bucket is empty. And then
Right.
they're trying to take care of themselves with an empty bucket. So
So
I
true.
always tell people, you have to, it's like what in business they say, when you're an entrepreneur, pay yourself first. Well,
Yes.
self-care for yourself first. Start with you. Make sure you are taking care of you so that you then have the energy and the bandwidth to take care of everybody else.
Agreed. And now that you know all of this and you're on the other side of things, what would you have done differently in that role? Would you have stayed for 5 years or would you
No,
have left a lot sooner?
I
Okay.
would have left a lot sooner.
Okay.
And uh, I would have just quit
Hmm.
instead of trying to hang on, instead of trying to do the right thing and get another job. Because when you're in that kind of environment, depression, anxiety
Yes.
um, set in, and just a defeatist kind of oh wow, this I'm never going to find anything better.
Right.
What if I have a family I have to feed? What if I quit and then I can't find anything else? But if you have to take yourself out of that immediately.
Hmm.
If you attempt to make changes and you get shot down every time you're trying to either shed light on it or make the changes or do things differently, you're fighting an uphill battle. And sometimes
Yes.
it's better to just cut and run, and then your mental health will and you will blossom. And because when you're in that environment, you are not in a mindset where you're open to bigger and better things. And it's not
Right.
until you get out of that when you can focus on you, when you can take time to just go, okay,
Yes.
and feel better about yourself and realize that you're worth more than what you're getting in one role. Because as you said, you are you who has this title or does this thing. You are not the title, you are not the thing.
Right.
You are so much bigger than that, and you have to
Yes.
stop and take care of you first.
So true. And I love how you brought up mindset because we can trick ourselves into believing some things that aren't true. Like you mentioned, oh, I can't get another job or I'm not good enough. And, I have to pay all these bills. How am I going to do this? So, for the people who are out there who have been in a toxic work environment for years and their mindset is really low right now, what are some suggestions you have for changing your mindset when you're not in a healthy environment?
I would say if you are stuck in an unhealthy environment, look at skills. Look at
Mm,
look at okay, so I know this is not what I want.
right.
What do I want? What if money and education and all those constraints that I think I have are taken off the table, what would I want to do, be, have?
Oh, yes.
And start dreaming, and start on paper, journaling. What kind of a life would I want? What income would I want? What
Mhm.
do I want to do my own thing? Do I want
Right.
to work for a particular company? Do I want to change roles completely? And start dreaming about that and start focusing on that. And then when you're with as much specificity as you can get, um,
Mhm.
once you have that, then you can take a look and go, okay, how can I start working towards this dream?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so instead of focusing on where you're stuck, expand your mind and your opportunity, and say, what can I do to become something bigger than this? What can I do to start, even if it's in my head, start exiting
Right.
this and creating the next opportunity? And even if it's networking more, even if it's um, skill building, starting a side hustle, doing whatever's going to make you feel good when you
Yes.
are not on their clock. And that's where you have to, the more you can feel good outside of work,
Hmm.
the less effect the toxic environment is going to have on you during the day.
Those are amazing tips. And I love the allowing yourself to dream
Hmm.
and then putting it on paper and coming up with a plan to make that a reality.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm also curious, during that time, who did you lean on outside of work for a support system?
My husband was a good support system. And I had my kids are all adults.
Mm,
So it was, I would connect with them and focus on that rather than the other, and
yes.
use that as a distraction, more or less. Yeah, my dog.
That's awesome. That is
Yeah.
awesome. That support is everything too. Well, I know we're coming up on our time together today, so I just have a couple more questions for you. And the first one being, do you have any last words of advice that you want to share, or yeah, any last words you want to share with everyone listening?
When people show you who they are the first time, believe them.
Ooh, that's a good one.
When you see the red flags, don't put your head in the sand and deny that they're happening. The sooner you see the reality of the situation you're in, even if you're there 2 weeks and you're going, whoa, this is not what I signed up for,
Mhm.
walk away.
Yes,
There's no shame. You have to put you first. You have to be the most important person in your life.
I love that. And I can guess the answer, but I just want you to verbalize it so other people can hear this. But how is life now that you're on the other side of things?
Life is awesome. Life is awesome. My whole career, I have always been working from a place of desperation,
Mhm.
and I finally stopped that, and I finally have uh, taken control of my career and where I want to go in life, and things are awesome right now.
I love that. And there's always another side when you put you first. And I'm so
Yes.
grateful that you
Yeah.
did that and that you shared that here today. And I know people are going to absolutely enjoy this conversation. So, Gretchen, if you don't mind sharing how people can get in contact with you or where they can connect with you, that'd be awesome.
I'm on LinkedIn, Gretchen Fontecaro, and uh, I'm on Facebook, and Instagram, BG Fonty 2000. So
Wonderful. And I will make sure to put Gretchen's contact information below in the description section so that you can reach out, connect, and take in all of Gretchen's amazing words of wisdom and work. So, Gretchen, thank you so much for sharing your story and spending time with me today and dropping a lot of advice and jewels and gems for people to listen to and be encouraged by.
thank you for taking on this project. I think it's awesome what you're doing and shining a spotlight on this. People need to know they're not alone.
Yes, that is the goal. Thank you so much, Gretchen. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Hey there. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Gretchen. It was very refreshing. I really enjoyed listening to her reflections and perspective on what she would do differently. I think it was really important to note that she would have left sooner. And I love that she said if you get into an organization and if 2 weeks in or a couple months in, you notice that it's toxic or it's not a right fit, leave. There's no excuse in the world that should make you stay in an organization that's like that because long term, it's going to damage you personally, emotionally, mentally, all of that. And nothing's worth it. Nothing is worth your peace of mind, your health, any of that. So I hope you enjoyed this conversation. I will make sure to leave Gretchen's contact information below so that you can reach out to her and consume her content as well. All right, thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and again, share this with someone who needs to hear it. All right, thanks for watching.